guys consider yourselves legends?
I think that's for other people to say. You know, we consider ourselves artists, I think.
In the 1990s, Cypress Hill would establish themselves as a defining presence in the world of hip-hop, thanks in large part to some brash lyrics that made them the first multi-million selling Latino rap group of all time. Whether it was DJ Muggs' bombastic production, B-Real's nasal-tinged flows, or Sendog's braggadocious barks, Cypress Hill came together to create something unique, and they've been breaking barriers ever since dropping their self-titled 1991 debut album. But while their legacy is undoubtedly secure, that doesn't exactly mean that it was always smooth sailing to be a part of their membership. Ever wonder who walked away first? I'll give you guys a hint. It happened so fast that it's probably not someone you usually associate with the crew. If you already know, fill the rest of us in down below. Everybody else, stay tuned for our latest edition of Where Are They Now? The original Cypress Hill would be known under a different name altogether, BVX. The very first incarnation of the group formed in 1988 when Cuban-born brothers Sendog and Mellow Man Ace met fellow Los Angeles natives DJ Muggs and B-Real. These guys hoped to pioneer a fusion of Latin culture and hip-hop slang by developing their own musical style. But before that could happen, Mellow Man Ace would drop out of the group at the end of '88, and the remaining members would rebrand themselves as Cypress Hill, named after a local street that B-Real and Sendog grew up on in Southgate, Los Angeles.
When this guy hits me up like, hey, I want to start this band, but I need you to quit your job and do this full time. I'm like, dude, I got full benefits. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hooked up right now.
At this still early point on in their career, B-Real wasn't sold on the prospect of becoming a musician, and more often than not, he'd abandon the group to go hustle on the mean streets of Compton. He told Variety in 2019, "I was in the gangbanging wars of the 80s. While they were trying to make music, I was out there f***ing up." As a member of the Bloods, B-Real was shot at the age of 18 by a Crip, who wound up suffering a punctured lung and suffered from internal bleeding. After that, Sendog and Muggs would continually reach out to B-Real, asking him to consider joining their ranks. Having just barely survived the near-death experience, B-Real finally decided to give music a real shot. No pun intended. With B-Real now fully committed, Cypress Hill underwent something of a reorganization. During the earliest stages of the band's life cycle, Muggs had tinkered with the idea of becoming the lead performer, but he had also developed a passion for DJing and producing. With B-Real now on board, lead vocal duties were passed off to him so that Muggs could concentrate on crafting the beats.
When I crafted the nasal style, right, it was your brother and myself, we were messing with real estate. And just before that day, you had come to me and you said, hey man, we need to do something about your voice, man. I don't know, you might have to write rhymes for Sendog.
With B-Real now on the mic, Cypress Hill would unleash their first massive hit single, How Could I Just Kill a Man?, which would go on the peak on the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot Rap Tracks. As the lead single off their 1991 self-titled debut album, this track would be backed by the Philadelphia-based label Rough House and immediately shoot the members of Cypress Hill to the moon. Their 1993 follow-up Black Sunday sold even better, and that album's single, Insane in the Brain, would become a gigantic crossover hit, earning the group their very first Grammy nomination. And I also feel like Insane in the Brain just became a phrase that owns its own space in the zeitgeist of pop culture. I don't know, Cypress Hill is influential. Go Google it. I don't know why you're listening to me. Shortly thereafter, Cypress Hill would also add percussionist Eric Bobo, son of Latin jazz pioneer Willie Bobo, after he had finished touring with the Beastie Boys. Sendog asked Eric to join Cypress Hill at Woodstock in the summer of '94, and from that point forward, he never left. But only 2 years later, dissension would finally emerge in the ranks of Cypress Hill. In early 1996, original Cypress Hill founder Sendog decided to take a step back from the group to focus on a side project, the metal act known as SX10. In fact, he'd take a 2-year hiatus to learn as much about the craft of making music as he possibly could. He would tell Variety, "I'd gone from working in a warehouse to being in a rap band. I never really learned music. With SX10, I learned about guitar and bass and drums. To this day, I think doing heavy metal on the side was a good thing for me." While he was away from Cypress Hill, it would be B-Real's turn to check in on Sendog as opposed to the other way around. Every 6 months, he'd stop by Sen's place and the two would share a joint while trying to decide if Sen was ready. During his extended absence, Cypress Hill continued to thrive after seeing the group perform on television without him. Sendog finally realized that it was time to finish what he had started. In 1998, he'd finally returned and the group would drop Cypress Hill 4. After a few more projects like 2000's Skull and Bones, as well as 2004's Till Death Do Us Part, it would be DJ Muggs' turn to take a sabbatical. With their primary beatmaker now no longer part of the team, it would take Cypress Hill a further 6 years to record and release their 8th studio album, the collaboration-heavy project Rise Up. Afterwards, however, Cypress Hill's musical output would slow down significantly. Outside of that 2010 release, the group would only drop one more album the entire rest of the decade, 2018's psychedelic trip, Elephants on Acid, for which DJ Muggs would make his triumphant return and handle majority of the production. Meanwhile, during the years in between Rise Up and Elephants on Acid, Be Real would become a member of the short-lived supergroup Prophets of Rage, alongside former members of Public Enemy, as well as Rage Against the Machine.
Are a power in itself, you know what I mean? Just the strength of how they play music.
As for Sendog, well, he formed a new metal act known as Power Flow.
We are in the smoke box. It's live. We got Power Flow in here with my man Sendog and Christian Olivobers. And Damon Steelblazer is assisting on this interview. Hello, Damon.
The Blazers in here.
The Blazers.
Oh my God, this joint tastes so good. It's not even lit.
I like that already.
But much like before, the boys didn't let their side ventures distract them from the business of Cypress Hill for long. Over the past year or so, the members of Cypress Hill have reconvened to produce the upcoming Showtime documentary reflecting on their history called Insane in the Brain.
Somewhere in here, there is Cypress Hill. Never thought we'd be making history.
They've also recently released their first studio album in 4 years, the appropriately titled Back in Black. Produced almost wholly by super producer Black Milk, Cypress Hill considered this project to be a return to their day one hip-hop roots. And while it may not be the last Cypress Hill album we ever get, whatever the future holds for the group, expect it to be vastly different from what has come before. During a promotional appearance for Back in Black, Be Real would reveal to The Independent, the next album after this one will be the final traditional Cypress Hill album. After that, we're still gonna make music. We're not gonna stop, not for nothing, but we wanna change up the experience. What exactly will that change up entail? It's hard to know for sure with a group that's reinvented themselves as many times as Cypress Hill has over these years. But all that really means is nothing is off the table with these dudes. We're just gonna have to wait and find out. After all, this is Where Are They Now, and you're all caught up with the recent history of hip-hop royalty, Cypress Hill. My name is Clyde Smith, and please be sure to like and subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in another video.